And good evening, everybody. This is Vincent Milletti with Milletti Law, the strongest name in law. My name is Vincent Milletti. I am the founder, owner, lead partner, shareholder, whatever you want to call me, of Milletti Law, the law office of Vincent Milletti. My website is www.millettilaw.com, www.millettilaw.com, MILETTILAW.com. Subscribe below in this YouTube channel. Become a subscriber so you could be in the know. You can get updates on videos, whatever the case is, because I try to pump out content as much as possible. Okay, so let's get right down into business. I don't want, this is, we're kind of shifting gears here. So obviously, those of you that have followed me know that we've had like a lot of interactions online with all these mandates. I mean, we're coming down to a head. Historically, you've always been able, historically there's always been some kind of option, right? Whether you pay a fine, for your freedom or whatever the case is. Long story short, so just to, well, let me set the context a little bit. Where does this all come from the very beginning, right? So everybody likes to talk about Jacobson. Jacobson was a case from 1905. If you look at Jacobson, it was something about like some kind of vaccination. I can't remember what it was from back then, but this guy needed to get his vaccination. He didn't want to get it. He cited, I guess, some kind of like religious reasons, whatever the case is. Though he was like opposed to the vaccination. They compelled him. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. In Jacobson, he had an option. He was able to, pay a fine or pay something and go on with his life. There was an alternative to actually taking this vaccine with Jacobson. Nowadays, we don't have that, right? So what's happening is, and I want to say, I can't remember the case, but a couple of months ago, there was a case where Gorsuch, I think his name Gorsuch, I think is the Supreme Court justice. He had some dicta in the end, concurrence in the end of a case where he started speaking about Jacobson and like the analogies to what's happening back then and what's happening today. And I think it's pretty well received, and it's pretty understood that in Jacobson's time, he was able to, I guess, like pay a fine and not be bothered with it, and just he didn't want to do any of that, whatever the case is. So I mean, to this day, I still feel pretty confident that if it really went down to the Supreme Court, would still rule in favor of individual freedom over mandates. But there was that comment about Jacobson and it being that him having an option, right? Him being able to pay a fine or whatever the case is, or do something else. We're getting to a point where we don't have this anymore, right? So this time around, it's you have to get this vaccine, otherwise you can't participate in society, you can't have your job. And now we get to when we never get your unemployment benefits. So what's really funny is a lot of time during the pandemic, what kept people afloat during the pandemic and the shutdown was the unemployment benefits, and especially the pandemic assistance. So people were getting $1,300 a week on this stuff, and that's what really kept people afloat. You're getting to a point where we're not having that no more. And what's happening now is what you're seeing, at least hospitals with this recent mandates that they're doing with the nurses, hospitals are beginning to send out emails to people and saying, hey, we're going to give you one more chance to get the vaccine. And if you don't get the vaccine, you're going to be presumed to be voluntarily resigning from your employment, which obviously spits in the face of what it means to, it actually spits in the face of like all unemployment law, because historically unemployment has been, so long as you are ready, willing, and able to work, if the employer creates condition for you that you cannot work, you're entitled to unemployment. But you always have to be ready, willing, and able to work. So the very text of unemployment, the very fabric of which it was built on, is being ripped to shreds right now. Because, let's put it this way, you are ready, willing, and able to work, a job that you've worked for your whole life. Some people, 15, 20 years, they've been working this job, and now suddenly you can't do this job because they put a mandate in place. They said you cannot work without this. Now, historically, there's been cases, especially in Jersey, where for the flu vaccine, people have mandated flu vaccines. Someone quit, they were still entitled to unemployment benefits. Because they didn't want the vaccine, they were more than happy to work with the employer, but the employer was like, nope, firm rule, gotta go. And you voluntarily, resign from your employment. But because it wasn't COVID, and because it wasn't it wasn't the election infection and this political pandemic, because it wasn't the case, no one batted an eye, and everybody was fine, and it was okay, she got her unemployment, even though she rejected the flu vaccine. So, but what's happening now is you don't even have that option. So basically, you, let's say as a nurse, are required to choose between like this kind of like Hobbesian choice, where you have on one end, you have to take this drug, right? Now, irrespective of your politics or whatever the case is, you cannot deny that on VAERS, on the CDC's website, even though no one reports it, that they have reported at least 1.4 million adverse reactions. They have reported 22 or 23,000 deaths attributable to this thing. And they have also reported just recently that even there was even a recall. Aside from, I think the first was Johnson & Johnson, but the second one recently was just now it's Moderna. Moderna had 1.6 million doses that had heavy metals inside of it. So look, you can't dispute this stuff. It's in the public records. It's in the CDC's records. So if you're going to go to the CDC and talk about all the greatness, then you got to talk about the bad news too. You can't just cherry pick what you like. So here we are. So we're faced with this situation. So now I like to use nurses as an example because they really got a dire situation. Just a year ago they were heroes, and now they're criminals right now. Right now they're disgusting creatures who are all sick and infected because they don't want to get vaccinated. So what's happening here is now we came across a situation where we're seeing pregnant nurses that one of them is one of them could be a high risk pregnancy. Aside from the fact that the CDC originally had mentioned that you shouldn't take any vaccines during pregnancy, whatever the case is, especially this stuff because it was so new and fresh. But whatever, that was yesterday and this is today. So now everything, the science is all over again. Now the science is settled on how safe the vaccine is, even for everybody. So whatever. So the point is, so now you have this person that's a high risk pregnancy and about to get terminated from the job. She's trying to get a medical exemption. Her doctor said, hey, listen, this is my paper. This is my assessment of my patient that I care for daily, and she's going to be very sick. She's a high risk patient to lose her pregnancy and get into some serious issues with her health. I don't know what this vax does, but I can tell you right now, it's an unnecessary stress that she does not need. So, so here we go. So she hands in her letter about her disability. The employee says, no, I'm not interested. No bother at all. No, you need to be vaccinated. Otherwise, if you're not vaccinated, you're going to be terminated. But not terminated, you're going to be believed to have voluntarily left your position. And then she got an email that said, hey, you get 7 more days. If you don't do it in 7 days, you voluntarily, we're going to take it as your voluntary resignation. Of course, the double think is stupid in that, right? Obviously, and that flies in the face of unemployment law, of years of unemployment law, but whatever, it is what it is. So the purpose of this video, that's like a 7-minute introduction, but the purpose of this video really is the anatomy of a disability discrimination claim. So the anatomy of a disability discrimination claim, part 1. We're going to walk through the process together, because we're going to try to, right now I'm trying to mobilize people. I'm trying to maybe get like a GoFundMe going or something. Look, the fact of the matter is this is a very hot button political issue. You're going to lose this, but you know what? If we can get a small little win here or there, a couple of sentences that go into something bigger later on, you got to play chess with these people. Because again, I just watched today all those companies in Staten, Italy, all those companies just get dismissed for no reason without even an opinion, right? So, I don't really know, odds are you're likely going to lose your position. Odds are you're probably going to lose here. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to posture to where we get enough little funds from people, $20, $30 from each person every couple months. I don't know, maybe every 6 months into a fund, a large GoFundMe. That large GoFundMe will just fund whatever litigation we can do, pay for experts, which we'll also find experts. Whatever, I'll drop the rate significantly to do it. The experts will charge the most, but whatever, we'll get what we got to get. Okay, so the point is, we're just trying to walk through the anatomy of a disability claim, right? When you file this, and this is going to be part 1, so give me a couple of them. I try to keep these videos a little short. This was a little bit longer because of my yapping at the beginning, but you need an introduction. So basically, you have your disability discrimination claim, right? You get them under 3. If you're coming from New York, you probably have them under about 4 specific laws. You have them under your ADA, your Americans with Disabilities Act, your Title VII, which is Civil Rights Act on the disability statute, New York State human rights law, and then New York City human rights law. One of them is called the executive law, something like this. Okay, so here's the thing. You're going to want to go, even though we have 5 actually, right? You have the ADA, you have Title VII, you have human rights, New York State human rights law, New York City human rights law, and then you have the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, the PDA. So you have 5 areas to go. You probably want to stay with state law. It's a little bit more aggressive, a little more detailed. In New York State human rights law, New York City human rights law, which is known as the executive law, and the PDA, the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. These laws are a little more aggressive and they cater a little more to like pregnancy-related issues. So you probably want to go there, right? So you're going to want to bring the case. You want to name all those statutes, but you're specifically going to focus on the elements of the New York State Human Rights Law, the New York City Human Rights Law, and the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. So to have a case for discrimination, you need 4 elements, right? This is known as prima facie, on the face. Prima facie, prima, on the face. So 4 items, right? So the plaintiff, the person who's bringing the complaint, the plaintiff is a member of a protected class. The plaintiff is qualified to hold that position. The plaintiff was terminated from employment or otherwise suffered some kind of adverse effect from the decision. And then the 4th one is that the discharge or whatever adverse action occurred under circumstances giving rise to the discrimination, meaning that occurred from the circumstances, the disability circumstances which are giving rise to this claim for discrimination. So your 4 essential elements before you can even step in the doors. You got to show you're a member of a protected class, that you're disabled. You got to show that the second part is you got to show you're qualified to hold a position, that you were a nurse, let's say for like 10 years or whatever the case is, or you're decent, that you were terminated from employment or otherwise suffered some kind of adverse reaction, that you actually suffered, and that the 4th element is that whatever you suffered, it was related to this disability. So the legal language is that the discharge or adverse action occurred under circumstances giving rise to an inference of discrimination. That's a lot of fancy language for, bro, you messed me up because of my disability, right? So we'll go right into the next one, right? So you want to go to the executive law, section 296. 3A, section 296 3A. This relates to pregnancy leave and pregnancy related conditions, right? But off the bat, right, being pregnant isn't a disability. It's actually a beautiful thing. But being pregnant isn't a disability. The only time being pregnant comes up as a disability is when you have certain impairments as a result of your pregnancy. So not everybody has like this great pregnancy, right? Not everybody has this really super pregnancy where you just take these beautiful pictures on the beach with your stomach in a dress and everything's nice. Some actually have terrible situations and they can't wait to get the kid out of them because it's actually really bad. I don't know, whatever, when you die, you ask God. That's him or her, whatever it is. God will deal with that. But here in New York, we got to deal with it from a legal perspective, right? So, generally speaking, if the pregnancy impairs performance in your job or impairs your life, any kind of like life situation, that's going to be considered, your pregnancy is considered like high risk and give rise to a disability claim, right? So, the way the case law has worked so far is the courts have acknowledged situations in which the pregnancy has given rise to carpal tunnel syndrome. Don't fight me on this. The courts have said this. Carpal tunnel syndrome, gestational diabetes, which is pretty common, pregnancy-related sciatica, and I don't know this word, preeclampsia, high blood pressure. It's like a thing. It's made up of high blood pressure, swelling of the hands and feet, and protein in your urine. I can tell you right now, as the protein prosecutor, as most actor in NYC, any protein that leaves urine, that's a bad thing. You want all your protein. But whatever that 4th one is, preeclampsia, I don't know, whatever it is, that's not good either. So those are your 4 things I found in the case law. I found in the case law, in my research, I found that if you have carpal tunnel syndrome associated from your pregnancy, that's an impairment. If you have gestational diabetes, that's an impairment. If you have pregnancy-related sciatica, that's an impairment associated with your pregnancy. And if you have this high blood pressure, swelling of feet and hands, and protein in urine, that's your 4th element. That's your 4th part, right? So, just to wrap this all around, I'm going to conclude part 1 here because remember, part 1 went through just now. We went through the elements of a pregnancy discrimination claim, just real quickly overview. How pregnancy could be a disability if pregnancy comes with an impairment that arises from your pregnancy. And the question is, so the overall question we're asking just today is very easy: is are you part of a protected class as being pregnant? You are part of a protected class, but whether or not you can, whether or not you have rights under that protected class as like a disability, that's going to depend on the kind of impairments you have with your pregnancy. So we could just categorize it by saying, is being pregnant, can you can you qualify for a pregnancy discrimination claim? Can you qualify as a disability claim if you are pregnant? Yes, you can. Generally, no, because pregnancy is not a disability. Like I said, it's a beautiful thing. Generally, no, it's not a disability, except when it comes with impairments. And we found with the court that the impairments are carpal tunnel syndrome, gestational diabetes, pregnancy-related sciatica, and high blood pressure. Or whatever that preeclampsia, I don't know, whatever that thing's called. But the point is, and for my content developer, don't worry, I'll write out the words so this way you don't have to try to understand what I'm saying, because I don't know what I can't pronounce it. So that's where we are. That's where we're stopping here. In the next installment, we're going to take it down the next logical step. We're going to break it down. We're going to break down in the next video. We're probably going to talk about, and I actually started writing it, but we're actually in the next video, I think we're going to talk about how you analyze these claims, where you show how do you analyze the policy that's given rise to your disability discrimination claim, right? Is it disparate impact? Is it disparate treatment? Is it implied? Is it express? So that's going to be the next portion. So this portion just want to talk about the 4 major elements of a pregnancy discrimination claim, of a disability discrimination claim, how pregnancy could be considered a disability for purpose of a disability discrimination claim, and what elements need to be there. In the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about how you assess this, how can you analyze discrimination, right? How can you analyze what the policy is that's being discriminatory to you and to your particular condition. And that will be part 2 of our installment of what do you call it? What did I just call it? The anatomy of a disability discrimination claim. So again, the anatomy of a disability discrimination claim. Follow us, like, subscribe. Jump in the, put comments below, whatever the case is. I will have somebody transcribe this, and I will have my content guy, Isaac, who's just fantastic at what he does. I will have Isaac transcribe this and make it sound decent and put it in a coherent fashion and make actual coherent speech out of my speech. And we'll see you then. So look, in the meantime, if there are any questions, concerns, you can leave your comments below. You could call me directly. You could send me an email. You could find me on the internet. I don't know. I'm all over the place. I'm very easy to find. Very easy to connect with. And if you have any questions, here we are. So yours in law, love, and lifts. And peace out. Have a beautiful day. See if this works.